When you said just, I was
Well,
like,
that's pretty close.
yeah.
I mean, it's not like
Thought
we
I-
shoes every week.
Yeah. Thought I missed something.
No, I mean, and McGinnis, I was going to give a little.
All right,
call
everybody,
back.
time to get
Okay, but
started.
go to the shooting range.
Good evening, welcome to the September 6th, 2023 Grants Pass City Council meeting. We start our meetings with a moment of silence, so please join me for that. And please rise for the flag salute. All right, looks like all the counselors are here tonight and ready to get started, I guess, with council action item A. Is a second reading of the public safety utility fee, and so we probably do not have a presentation. Okay, we do have several people who wanted to speak on this issue, I think. Kevin Gambucci, Bonnie McDonald, Mike Slotemaker.
There's no public comment for a second reading.
Is it closed? All right. I guess we won't be taking public comment then on that issue. Council. Joel.
I just want to share with the council what people have shared with me, and I think we would hear some similar things tonight. There's a lot of angst and anxiety, I think, among the business community about what is their fair share of public safety. And I think some people would comment about that tonight. I would also think some people would comment about the need to fund public safety. And there's a lot of strong sentiment that way as well. And those two aren't necessarily or, they're not or, they could be and. And then the other sentiment I've heard is there was some, I don't know what you'd call it, confusion or lack of clarity or understanding on the part of the council in terms of numbers. And I just want to make clear what my position is at this point in time, that if we move forward with this tonight, which I will be voting for, it does not set the amount of dollars. Now, there's a lot of people that don't trust the city council, and I can understand that. And I accept that, and you can give me a call and express that. As we move forward, if we implement the utility fee at all, we need to have another meeting as to what the amount is, and that needs to be done in public and with transparency. And I don't know anybody up here that would disagree with that. If they do, I hope they speak up tonight. But what we're moving forward with right now is permission for the staff to start preparing that, just to keep this option on the table. And then if that's what we decide to do after we get more information, such as what has happened with the property, the public levy for property tax, clarification of the numbers or whatever, that we can move forward and fund public safety. So that's where I'm at, and I feel strongly about that. And if you disagree with that, just give me a call. It's fine. Thank you.
Rob, then Valerie, then Brian.
So did I hear you say that we're not taking public comment tonight? Did
I
hear you
was
say that?
told by the city manager and attorney is that we don't take
Okay.
public comment on a
And
second
the reason
reading.
we're not doing it is because the city manager and the city attorney told you not
think
to.
the
I'm just
I think
clarifying.
the council could decide to take public comment if you wanted to.
Okay. And I'm sorry, so why does the city attorney and city manager say not to take it?
It's generally not something that's done for a second reading of an ordinance.
So I'd like to make a motion that we have here public comment tonight on this matter.
Seconded by Vanessa. Discussion on that motion? All right, Rob, you made the motion to take public comment. How do you vote?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0. I'm going to stop council comments for now then and turn it back to the public. Bonnie McDonald? Bonnie, make sure that the light at the bottom of the mic is on, not the green light, but right at the base of the microphone. There should be a button there. Yep, do you see the light?
Okay.
Okay, and then you
Okay.
have 3 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, you have 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. My topic tonight is who owns Grants Pass. City Council Member Valerie Lovelace said at the last City Council meeting concerning funding of the police and fire that if we can't protect the city, we have nothing, and that public safety is our #1 job. She is absolutely correct. So I wonder why that in the budget, we fund everything else first, and if there's anything left, which there isn't, we fund the police and the fire departments. My questions are, why are we inviting more people to come here and live if we can't afford to protect the people that are already here? Why are we not prioritizing safety first? How much money is spent on those living in the parks who do not want help to get well? My solution, I would like to see an independent review of the budget and the budget process to see where all the money is actually going and how we can prioritize the funding. City Council Member Lovelace said there is no more place to cut. I suspect it is more of a matter of priorities. We need more transparency. So I'm wondering why we can't fund police and fire and their related replacement funds first, then necessary items to run the city, then city enhancements to attract tourism to support the revenue of our local businesses, and whatever else is left could be used to support our aging population, our veterans, our widows, our orphans, and our single parents with children, our single parents with children. A good portion of our population is living on a fixed income. We have learned to live within our means. The city also needs to live within its means. We need fiscal responsibility. We need to wean ourselves off of grant funding. Grant funds are never free. They cost you and your freedom, your voice, your quality, and your way of life, and your values. Be careful when you accept money from the government, either local or federal. Their goal is to change our identity to benefit their agenda. What are our values that are important to our way of life? We must not compromise. We must stand up for our values. They are worth protecting for us and for our children. So I again ask, who owns Grants Pass? You decide. Thank you for listening.
Mike and Kevin, were your comments having to do with public safety funding and the utility fee?
Good evening. My name is Mike Slotemaker. I am a resident of Grants Pass. Thank you for the leadership and for being willing to listen to what the public has to say in this second reading. I want to just quickly speak about cost versus value. I can tell you exactly how much it costs for my cat. I have to pay for what goes in and what comes out. So cat food, kitty litter, we can figure that out down to the penny. But what's the value to me of that cat? When he climbs up on my lap and he purrs and provides me comfort, and he's a good boy, and my cat is very valuable to me. And I use that to say, what's the value of my safety in my life? It's really hard to put a number on that. But we look at leadership of this city to say, what is the cost for that safety? And when the staff comes in and says, here's our budget, here's what we need to provide safety for our citizens, and that increases the cost to me, and numbers that were floated were $26 a month, $30 a month. You're telling me $1 a day will increase my safety? The value of which I can't put a dollar number to, but the cost we can. So I say thank you for looking at this as a way to sit here and say when circumstances change and we have to provide protection and it's necessary, and the leadership and the professionals that are there are advising this council that we need more money, the cost has increased. They're putting value on every life in this city. And think about that as we deal with the transient issues. There's still a value to those human lives. And I'm willing to put up with part of that cost because that's what appropriate that we do as citizens that contribute to this community. So my support goes to this city council for having the catalyst of a utility fee to be determined down the road as appropriate. And I thank you for listening to my opinion tonight.
Kevin?
My name is Kevin Gambucci. I'm a city resident. I first want to thank you guys for letting us talk. I think it's important, first thing, to not shut us out. The whole reason why you're here is because we've voted for you guys. So to shut us out is completely wrong, and I thank you for letting all of us talk. Over here on your board, you've got your council goals is to community safety is the #1 thing you have on there, yet your budget, it's not #1. So I'm just wondering why your goals are different than your goals that you've stated on your mission statement here. If that's truly the case, then that should be your #1 thing you're talking about, or change your board or do something different because you're not following up to, again, what you've been voted in to do. You've been voted in to do this, but you're doing something else. We can keep throwing money at this thing the whole time. The more money you throw at it, the more problems you're going to have. It's not going to change anything. We could give the police and the fire department all the money in the world. It's not going to change the core problem that's here. We're just throwing good money after bad at this point. There's some people that want help, some people that don't. We need to stop coddling the small percentage and taking care of this city as a whole. And like this gentleman here just said, we got to take care of everybody and not just throwing money at one problem that doesn't want to go away. It's all catch and release. They can do whatever they want. They can steal, rob, do whatever they want. There's no consequences. They're not going to jail. The jail's full. They're not going anywhere. It's sad when we have to be turning people away from the jail at this point. There's so many people doing wrong things because there's no consequences. And I don't feel that I'm going to have to start paying more money, good after bad, to take care of this. It doesn't make any sense to anybody to just keep throwing good money away. We need to come up with some better solutions to this. The whole community needs to come together and not just people deciding who's going to take more money out of my pocket. That's not how it works. We need to do something different, and I'm not on there, so I don't come up with those, the answers, but I think, just charging people more money to take care of a bad problem is not going to solve the problem. There's people coming from all over the United States here because they know they can get away with it. There's, like Bonnie was saying, everybody's giving out grants to give out to needles and everything else. We should have treatment and not just coddle the problem. It's like there's people coming here just because it's an easy place to be. There's no consequences for anything. They can get their drugs super cheap or free. They can get all their needles and all their drug paraphernalia for free. And it's like where am I living? What kind of world is this? That this is the world that I have for my children, and this is a beautiful town that I decided to move and to hopefully retire in. It's like you want people to stay here, you want tourists to come. You're going to have to do something different than keep charging all the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Did anybody else want to speak on the public safety utility fee? Please step forward and state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
Good evening, Bracken Sharp, city resident, vice president of the Grants Pass Professional Firefighters. I do have some quick numbers just to hopefully jog some memory. In November of 2008, Measure 1722 was to increase the public safety levy to $1.89. That failed at 50.61%, pretty close, still failed. That was attempted again in November of 2020, measure 1796, failed at 53.43%. Again, close, but still failed. That was a 10% increase. Both subsequently were renewed in May of the following year. In November of 2015, a 2% sales tax to fund public safety was on the ballot. It's measure 1767, excuse me. And that was a resounding 77.93% no. Last year, we had our 3% seasonal sales tax. That was again a resounding 82.69% no. And then the fire district in November of 2019, measure 1793, was a $2.03 per thousand rate for a fire district, and that failed at over 80%. I know that there's been some conversation of asking the public for their opinion, and their opinion's been given. So I know, I spoke at the last meeting that the can has been kicked to the end of the road. We're here at our second reading, and I hope that you guys make the right decision. I know at the last meeting someone brought up the argument that fire and police are not a utility. When you flip your lights on or flip a switch, you get light, right? You have power. When you turn your faucet on, you get water. When you call 911, you get a fire engine. I can guarantee that every single time. You call 911 because you're in trouble and you need help, Grants Pass Fire Rescue is going to show up at your door with highly trained, skilled professional firefighters that are there to mitigate any issue and any problem that you may have. I do appreciate, obviously, your transparency. I stated that last time, trying to do the right thing, and I know that all of you have that in your heart to do the right thing. And that's all I've got. One thing to leave you with, just a quote from a former UK Prime Minister, George Canning, is that indecisions and delays are the parents of failure. So I hope that we can speed things along and get this figured out. Thanks.
Anybody else? Step up, please.
Hi. Hi, thank you. I'm a resident in Grants Pass.
What is your name?
My name's Abby Fazer. I'm a firm supporter in public safety, and I am just concerned about the utilities being separated from the public safety, because when employment and salary needs to be included and increased in our community, why is the city not looking at how to privatize, unionize that budget to accommodate their needs rather than residential carry the excess over? So I don't understand all of those things, and I would like to, but as a single-family resident, utility rate tax on my increase on my utilities would highly affect me. But I also believe that, I also think that it would be substantial for our city to be paying, for me to be paying for that. But I wonder if there's not an alternative route to be increasing their salary benefits or needs to bring that up. So that's all I got to say. That came out.
Rika Brown, Grants Pass. Thank you for taking comment today on this second reading. I've been reading the ordinance, and I've got all the ammunition I need to do a referendum in the ordinance. You got some very scary stuff in here. To the this under fee restricted for use, to the extent that the fees collected are insufficient to properly provide public safety services, the cost of the same may be paid from such other city funds as may be determined by the City Council. But the City Council may order reimbursement to such fund if additional fees are therefore collected. Now, over here, under establishment and revision of public safety utility fee establishment, such fee shall not be imposed in amounts greater than authorized by law to provide sufficient funds to properly maintain city streets and provide safety improvements. So this is not just about police. It's not just about police and fire. It's about our streets. And anything else that can be called a public safety improvement. Darn near every bit of infrastructure we build in this city is a public safety improvement. We do not need this on our utility bills. There is no limit to the amount you can charge us on our utility bills in this thing. None at all. Once they decide it's good for public safety, they can fund it with us, with our utilities, as a utility. And of course, I noticed in the definitions that there's no definition of utility. I can define a utility. Can you? I think a utility is, first of all, huge infrastructure that needs to be maintained. Now, the roads are like that, I got to admit. But they can be paid for piecemeal. The structure of a utility system is a whole thing. It has to all be paid for. It has to all be paid for on time. And your water rate system has not been doing that for about 30 years. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I'll close public comment and turn it back to the council, and I believe Valerie and then Brian are next.
Okay, so I did hear kind of what I expected to hear, and yes, I do believe that public safety is our #1 priority. I have been on council for 8 years. I have been on council for every one of those levies or whatever we went out for, fire districts, telling people and pleading with them that we cannot keep going at this pace without taking a big hit. And we are here. We're at the big hit. It costs approximately $30 million. And you say our priority is not public safety? Our entire property tax is used for public safety. $1.79, that's about $15 million. $1.79 raises about $6.7 million. That does not get us to $30 million. So we have a big deficit. And what we've been doing, we have been cutting. We cut $4 million in the last 3 years from our budget. We have positions open on the budget committee. We had 2 this year that were not filled, and they were continually put out to people to come to our budget committee, help us with these decisions. We had half of the public positions filled. You can go online to finance. You can read our budget. Everything is out there. I truly hope that you will go to our website right now, which I went to right before I came here, because the very front page explains exactly how we got to where we are and why we're here. The majority of our costs at the city are personnel. Over half of those personnel are police officers. With the circumstances that we have in our world right now, with things like the new family leave, with knowing every time there's an officer involved shooting, those officers are put on administrative leave, with knowing the fact that some people have to be put on light duty because of injuries they've received on the field, we are operating at much less of a police force than we were 8 years ago when I came on. And I've been through every budget committee meeting. I've been through all of this, and I know how desperately we've been asking people to give us money, and everybody says no. I get it. I don't want a police a fee on my water bill either. But you know, over 50 cities in this state have them. They also have park maintenance fees, which we do not have on our water bill. When we put the transportation fee on for the jail, guess what? We took it off when we didn't need it anymore. So there's a lot of reasons to trust us, and there's a lot of reasons for you to be involved and ways for you to find out what is necessary and why we are where we're at. You can start by going to the website, and there's lots of questions there. There's lots of information. It basically shows how our permanent levy, if we were to to have a levy now, the levy option, we would have to charge $3.80 to support our police. We couldn't get $1.89 twice. When we went out for the fire district, we were recommended that we work for $2.11 to keep our status quo. But we cut it down and just went for $2.03, hoping that maybe that would help us. It didn't pass. At what point do you let your police go? Not on my watch, because I do believe public safety is our #1 priority. As was stated earlier, when you call 911, you want somebody to come to your house. If you lived through 2012 out in the county, it didn't happen. I don't want to live that way in the city. So I will be in favor of putting this on, getting a water fee established. That's all we're doing right now. And in a forum situation where we can talk about how much to put on it and have that discussion. Do we want to increase our level of safety? Because quite frankly, I want more safety. We have more problems than we did 8 years ago too. And I know that. And I think everybody knows that. So to think that we're working with less people on the streets than we were then, I don't want to be there. I know our fire is barely, they're just skipping by. I don't want that. I want a safe community. And so I'm willing to step out and say I will do what is necessary to make that happen.
Brian.
I'm glad we let people speak. And I don't think that there's any counselor up here that is going to let public safety service levels diminish or decrease in any way. I'm pretty confident in that. I think where the issue is how we do that. And the utility fee is not the only option to do that. The utility fee is the option that seems to be getting a lot of traction right now. So before I go into that, I just want to make sure that we're all clear that I think I'm very confident everyone up here wants to fund public safety and does not want service levels to decrease. So the problem with utility fee is, you know, we've never had it before, and once you open that door, there's no going back. You know, that's it, and then we have it, and then it's there forever. And $25, $30 a month just to start off is huge. It's a huge amount. It's not huge for us. You know, everyone up here, no big deal, we can pay that. But yeah, even you, DJ, I know you can pay that. But we have a lot of people in this community, a lot, that don't make very much money or don't have very much income or are on fixed income or are barely scraping by. Those people, it's going to be a huge hit on. And that gives me pause on this particular avenue to fund public safety, because there are other options. There are other options that give people a little bit more flexibility in how much they pay. And one of those options is some sort of either a food and beverage tax or a sales tax, because those options, you know, you determine how much you pay by how much you spend. And so if you don't have very much money, you don't pay as much tax. And if you have a lot of money and you spend a lot of things, you pay more tax. So people have more control over their expenses. Just charging everyone a blanket $30 a month, you know, if you're a millionaire or if you're, you know, living in a shanty down somewhere, that's not fair. And that makes things a lot harder for people that, you know, are of modest means, of which we have a lot in this community. Like, that's honestly probably the majority of this community are people like that. So if we put, you know, there's the argument that, oh, the sales tax failed, you know, 77%. Well, of course it did. if you put a utility fee on the ballot, how much do you think that's going to fail by? It's probably going to fail by, 77% or more. So that's not a real argument. But looking at doing some option that gives people a little bit of control over that expense. A food and beverage tax, that's like, you go out to eat and there's like a 3, 4, or 5% tax on your dinner. And if you can't afford to go out to eat, then you're not paying that tax. And that might not be the whole solution, but I really think that is part of the solution so that we're not shoving it all in the utility bill. The utility bill is already out of control. I mean, I was complaining about the utility bill before I was on council. I hear people complain about the utility bill all the time. And we're gonna tack on another $30. And then if the levy fails, we're gonna tack on another $30. I'm not voting for that. So I would advise us to not ram anything through that we can't, put Pandora back in the box, so to speak. I think that we have other options, and I think that we're kind of moving forward. I know that we have a timeline, but the timeline is not so tight that we have to do this tonight. We could explore food and beverage tax option to see how much revenue that could bring in, and that could probably not reduce the utility fee, but it could certainly, well, it wouldn't eliminate it, but it would certainly reduce it by a significant degree. So, yeah, I'm going to be voting no.
Anybody else? DJ?
Sure, I'll piggyback on that. There are clearly ideas on the table that need further vetting. We have a level of service discussion to have. We have a discussion about the implications of the general fund that we need to have. We need to push hard on a public information campaign, and we need to talk about the implications on the utility bill for a water treatment plant. There's a bandwidth of the utility bill that we're talking about here. And we need to talk about that bandwidth in regards to how we plan on paying for a water treatment plant and fund public safety. I've been assured that we're going to talk about these things after we approve the ordinance to create a rate structure on the utility bill, and I take exception to that. I need more information. The constituency needs more information. One thing that I have an issue with is we didn't give the constituency an opportunity to increase the levy by even a marginal amount, with them understanding that that would reduce a theoretical increase on their utility bill. That's gone, that's moving forward, but I take exception to that. I'm not ready to move forward at this time, but as Brian said, nobody up here intends to leave public safety in the lurch. There's still more work to be done, and I hope that we do that hard work before we codify this ordinance.
Joel, then Valerie?
Well, I'd just like to say voting yes for this tonight does not forego those other options. All it does is keep this in the mix. There is no rate assigned at this point in time, and if there is going to be a rate assigned, it will be done openly and publicly. And I don't think anybody else would have it any other way. So in terms of those other options that my fellow counselor, and I give him credit for bringing them up, those are still on the table. This voting yes tonight does not remove those from the table. And yes, we will fund public safety. In terms of the uncertainty, being as we're not setting the rate today and not going to sneak it by anybody, if we sneak it by somebody, you can cut off my head, okay? I'll get out here and you can stab me with a knife because I would deserve that. That will not be done without public input and be done appropriately. We just need to keep this option on the table as we move forward, and this measure does that. And we can clarify information. So I think to not do that at this point in time would be irresponsible.
Valerie?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we are bringing it to the table that we have a crisis. We are being transparent that we needed to raise $8 million somehow in order to keep our public safety where it is now. And we need to have public discussions, and I couldn't agree more. But I also realize and recognize that a piece of it is the the fee on the water bill. So with that, I am going to move to amend the Grants Pass Municipal Code by adding Chapter 8.90, Public Safety Utility Fee, and have it read by title only, second reading.
Seconded by Rick. Discussion on the motion. Rob?
So while I have to say I agree pretty completely with virtually everything that all the councilors said tonight, I have a concern about this this motion, and I have a concern about this this ordinance that no one's brought up yet. And I'm just going to have people brace that what I'm going to say is not going to please the staff, the unelected people up here. It's not going to please, but it's in my mind that I'm going to share it. So we've got, while passing an ordinance with a $0 or 0% fee in there would seem harmless enough, and what I appreciate about that is that it would basically create a tool that the council has that at a moment's notice we can invoke and raise money for public safety if we need it. And that's the intent that I think anyone who would vote yes would be doing, just to have that available should we need it next spring. My concern is that some of the other options require, at this point, more work from staff. It requires more work to investigate, more work to implement, more work to monitor, and quite frankly, the easiest option for staff is for council to pass this tonight and fill in whatever dollar figure we need next spring, and staff does no more work because we already send out the water bills. It's been my experience with staff is very often when something is easier for them, or if they're not behind something, and I can mention many things, if the staff or the city manager or some of his people are not behind something, it will take forever to get them to do it, or forever to get the information from them. And I could give examples right now, but I'm not going to. So my concern is that, I spoke this morning with Josie Malloy of the Chamber, and we talked about several different funding options for public safety, how the Chamber might feel about that. And, what I said to her is that I actually would need more information before I would know, how I would vote on which method I would choose to fund public safety. I'm going to vote on a method to do it, and it could be a utility fee. I'm going to vote on a method to do it. But, she, said to me that, yeah, the Chamber would actually like to be consulted when we have a little more information. We'll have more information in November, because if the levy passes, the utility fee would look one way. If it fails, the utility fee would potentially look another way. There are other options, as Brian mentioned. There are other options. And unfortunately, something like a food and beverage tax would take some time to set up. And, there's, as I've mentioned before, there was nobody in 2015 in Grants Pass who was more against the sales tax than I was. All those valid reasons, I believe valid reasons that I was against it, and many people were against it, most of those don't apply to a food and beverage tax. And, I know that the Oregon Restaurant Association would, go nuts over a food and beverage tax, and some of the local restaurateurs would go nuts. I would be paying that tax. So, it's part of my business. So it's not something that I would want to, that I'm saying someone else should be paying that I'm not willing to pay, or not willing to administer, I should say, because it's a pass-through. But my point is that to have a food and beverage tax will take many months to set up, many months to investigate, many months to implement. And if we come down to, next May, if we do a levy the second time, if we come down to next May, and we haven't actually gone down that road enough with enough information on a food and beverage tax, the staff will say, geez, we can't invoke it quick enough. And the council will say, well, my goodness, we've got a crisis now because we can't invoke it quick enough. One simple fact that, I've asked for about food and beverage tax in Ashland, I probably asked the first time, 4 to 6 weeks ago, one simple fact the council still hasn't received. How many different accounts pay into the Ashland fund? because that would give us an idea of how much we might be able to raise in Grants Pass. The longer it takes for us to find out that information, the less likely we're going to be able to go down that road should the council want to choose that. So I'm concerned that tonight, this is in a certain sense, voting yes on this allows staff to relax because they know public safety is going to be funded one way or another, allows them potentially to drag their feet on some of the other things. I mean, face it, city staff doesn't want to levy because it's work and there's uncertainty. They would much prefer a fee. Of course they would, because it's more certain and there's no work at all for them. They also would not want a restaurant tax. You've got to manage that. You've got to set up you got to set up all the methods and criteria. But I'm concerned that it allows them to relax. It gives them a free pass to say, look, it's covered. They exhale. They go home tonight thinking, whoa, good. We know we've got public safety funded, even if we drag our feet to make it so that it's not practical to do another method. And that really concerns me based on how I've seen government work. So for that reason, I'm going to be voting no tonight.
Joel?
So I believe we have a motion on the floor, and we need a second. Is that correct?
No, it's been seconded.
Been
It's just
seconded? Oh, so we're-
discussion on the motion.
Oh, okay. So the city council is responsible for what happens in the future. The staff is not. To blame the staff for some future action that hasn't yet occurred is to negate our responsibility as council people. And I look at the people up here, we need to take our things seriously, and we don't, at this point in time, need to blame somebody else that works for us that hasn't even happened yet. So I disagree strongly with what Rob's saying. He is based on some past action that he has experienced that I have not. And I am responsible, as are the rest of us, for setting what happens and who funds public safety. Staff is not. Let's make that clear. And if you don't like what I do, you need to recall me or whatever, and I need to be responsible for that. And to negate that and put it on somebody else is not what I'm going to do. I'm going to take responsibility.
Vanessa?
When we began these discussions some time ago, there was, from staff, there was a stress that other cities around the state pay for public safety services in a manner that is diversified. And so I believe that this is not the end of the road today. I think that this is just the beginning. I would like us to continue this discussion, what the rate may be, if there is a rate, and also the other options that are on the table available to us, such as the food and beverage tax. I do look forward to learning more about that.
Rick?
I'll be in favor of voting for this ordinance tonight. I feel we need as many tools as we can, help level the playing field, also the paying field, who actually pays for it. So I am willing to consider a sales tax. I am willing to consider a food and beverage tax. I would like to see tourism help paying for this. But at the moment, this is just an additional tool that allows us to address the situation before us and show that we support both fire and police. Thank you.
Valerie?
Yeah, I was actually somewhat offended as well by the blame being put on the staff, because I know personally in the 8 years that we've been working to get all of this money brought forth, an incredible amount of work has been done by the staff. So to me, that's just was just inappropriate, because I do feel that that they feel that public safety is important, and whatever we ask, we may not get it pronto immediately, but it is given to us. So I'd just like to call a vote, I guess. I think we've all spoken.
Brian?
Oh, I was just going to say, we have all spoken except for state rep candidate, Councilor Juncker.
All right, anybody else? Dwayne?
Because Brian really wants my thoughts. Yes. And I think I've already voiced my opinion on this thing, but I don't like the process right now. That's my problem with this. I hate the levy thing that we're doing, so I mean, that's where I'm going on the whole thing is the process, the levy, the taxes. It doesn't sound that we're all in unity. So, you know, that's kind of where my thoughts are going to be on tonight when I vote. But, you know, I've been quoted many times by every source in this town, it seems like, that I'm for the $50. That's what everybody's put on my, so never even got to vote yet, and they already told me I'm $50. So it was just a discussion. So I've been quoted several times in the Daily Courier, the Democratic Party, it's $50. So just because of a discussion, I said, and yeah, I do like the fee. I'm okay with it. I know Kevin and Bonnie back there be paying less taxes, so I'm okay with that, but they're not. So, I mean, it's just, this is not an easy subject, and a lot of no's, and that's what we hear. My whole 40 years here is no's. So it's tough.
Rob?
Very briefly, I just have to comment on Joel's comments about what I said. Joel, by your own admission, you weren't paying attention the first time we asked about food and beverage stuff. You weren't paying attention. You had to ask for it again. You weren't paying attention the first time we asked for clarification. So it has taken longer than it should for some of the most basic information to get to us, even though it's now just recently on your radar, okay? That doesn't mean that I didn't ask for the information earlier. It didn't mean that the rest of the council wasn't paying attention. So, you know, when I say that it's taking longer than it should, you can call that blaming someone if you want, but the fact of the matter is, I could find out that information, and I may have to. The staff could also do it, and it would probably be easier. You weren't interested in the information the first time we brought it up, a month or so ago. Now you're paying attention. Good, I'm glad. But we need that information, and it's a staff job to get it, and we don't have it yet.
Are we ready to vote? All right, Valerie, you made the motion to add the safety utility fee, have it read by title only, second reading. How do you vote?
Yes.
DJ?
No.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
No.
Brian?
No.
As luck would have it, I had a feeling this would happen. And I'll tell you that I think you've all said a lot of good things here tonight. Public safety is a priority. I also don't like this process. This action would put the train on the tracks. It's a blank check. It's a stealth tax. We're not asking the public to vote on it. And I'm going to vote no. Motion fails, 5-4. And the next item is council action item B, which would amend some awards having to do with Three Peaks Holding.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Three Peaks Holding is the application for a bragg grant to assist them with the construction of a new mixed-use building over off of K Street. You have seen this a few times now. I'm going to show you a couple pictures to show the progress that they are making, but if you do approve this tonight, you're authorizing another few month time extension to give them a little bit more time to finish up their electrical work. We do require that all of the work be done before we reimburse them any money. So here's a timeline. I won't read it all for you. I think you were all present for all of these going back to May 5th of 2021 when You authorized the first $50,000 for fire suppression and infrastructure for this 228 Southeast K. And you have given a 4-month time extension and then another time extension. This one would extend through June 30, so the end of the fiscal year, although Tyler Cope has told us as recently as a couple weeks ago, he thinks it's 4 to 6 weeks before they get some of their final electrical pieces and they can wrap it up. So here's a couple of photos taken a few weeks ago. You can see the upstairs residential unit. They've come a long way. They've got cabinets hanging on the wall there. They've got the flooring in, some of the utilities and appliances. And then on the first floor is the bottom there, the downstairs commercial space, which is where their road cleaners is going to be located, is also mostly complete. The revenue source is LB 6394. This is our BRAG program. This would be a maximum of $50,000. The current balance in that fund is $190,500. And this is, of course, at your discretion. After conversations with Tyler, and we've heard this from other builders, the supply chain on the electrical componentry is backed up, and he's been waiting on that piece. So we need to have this extended for him to be able to get the money if you still approve the grant. So there's a recommended motion for you at the bottom.
Thanks, Brad. Questions? No? Is there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on this? All right. Close public comment. Turn it back to you, council. Brian.
I actually did have one question. Add one question, Brad, sorry. Yeah, it's simple, but, and you may not know, but had there been other BRAG grant applicants that have had to do repeated extensions like this before, or is this the first one?
We have had a couple that have received at least one. In my 4 years, we haven't had a third extension, I don't believe. So that is rare.
Okay, so we're setting a new record tonight.
We are.
Great.
Discussion? Rick?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution amending resolution number 217041, previously amended by resolution 227173 and 227244, awarding Three Peaks Holding LLC a business retention and relocation assistance grant matching up to $50,000 for property located at 228 Southeast K Street to assist with fire suppression and infrastructure charges. This approval includes a time extension through the end of fiscal year 24, which would expire on June 30th, 2024.
Seconded by Joel. Discussion on that? All right, Rick, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. I think Councilor Yunker said one of his kids had a game tonight. Next up, we had a change to the agenda, so there's an item C now that wasn't in your packet. Item C has to do with the county application regarding public intoxication.
Evening, Mayor Council. So this presentation is about a consent to Josephine County's Ordinance 2023-004, still contemplated. So this ordinance seeks to regulate public intoxication. This would, at present, just apply to the county. They need to get consent to us from us under state law for the city to opt in. Minor changes will be made at the county's discretion, but any major substantive changes will require a proposal to be brought back before you if you choose to consent tonight. And the county is requesting a resolution no later than September 15th. So you should have a copy of the ordinance on the dais. I'll quickly go through it. It is pretty self-explanatory. So the county is basically doing code amendments that change the definition of intoxicant. So it essentially adds all the drugs under the sun that you can think of as a potential intoxicant. It also deals with consumption of an intoxicant. So it states that no individual shall consume any intoxicant while in or upon public property, where any consumption of intoxicants is generally prohibited, including but not limited to any public thoroughfare, public street, sidewalk, alley, road shoulder, any other public right-of-way. And public property is defined as public lands, premises, and buildings, including but not limited to any building in connection with the transaction of public business or any lands, premises, or buildings owned or leased by the state or to any political subdivision therein. So 9.05050, 9.06060 both deal with open containers in general, and then open containers in a motor vehicle. Essentially, you can't have an open container, which is defined as a glass, can, vessel, pipe, syringe, pen, or other open container containing an intoxicant, while in or upon public property, where consumption of those intoxicants is generally prohibited. So one's, again, generally for an open container out in public. One is for an open container inside of a motor vehicle or on a motorcycle. So what's unique about this ordinance is it doesn't actually set a violation for the underlying offense. So if an individual is caught consuming an intoxicant in public, the only punishment that they're subject to is trespass. Now, this will become a little bit more important as I go on with the presentation because there's a couple wrinkles that I need for you to know. So the overall effects of consent, if the city were to consent, Ordinance 2023-004 would apply within the city limits and would include the city's right-of-way in all city parks. That's given public properties broad definition there. There's nothing really adverse to the city's interest in this ordinance. Again, it's a little bit duplicative. And there is a potential wrinkle with state law. But all of that said, consent would not change the current procedure for citation and trespass of individuals for controlled substances under Measure 110. And at this point, Cave Junction is said to have consented to this ordinance. So this is the wrinkle. It's ORS 43402. This statute prohibits local governments from making A through E, up behind me, a violation, a criminal offense, or the subject of criminal or civil penalties of any kind. So that's public intoxication, public drinking, except as to places where consumption of alcoholic beverages is generally prohibited, drunk and disorderly conduct as in one offense, drunk and disorderly being the two elements. Vagrancy, where the use of a controlled substance is an element, or using or being under the influence of cannabis. And 403-402 doesn't modify any law or regulation having to do with driving under the influence. So this is kind of an interesting wrinkle because we have Portland who's trying to do the same thing up there, and they ran into this law, and they're having an issue going forward with it as this law is currently drafted. So, as we can see in the ordinance, the definition of intoxicants is very broad, and it includes alcohol, cannabis, and other controlled substances. Again, most drugs that you could probably think of. The ordinance clearly addresses the consumption of alcohol, cannabis, and other controlled substances in addition to possession. So, when you're talking about public drinking, the ordinance, not the ordinance, the statute directly relates to, directly states that public drinking has an exemption. There's not a carve-out, however, for regulating the use of cannabis or other controlled substances. And E in the statute also applies to using or being under the influence of controlled substances or cannabis, saying that it can't be a violation of any kind under local law. This doesn't change the underlying enforcement of Measure 110. As I said, whether council decides to consent or not, enforcement of Measure 110 is going to continue the same as it's been. Interestingly enough, 403-402 does not cover provisions regarding possession and manufacture, so it's only use or being under the influence. So that means that individuals can still be cited for possession or manufacture. So, kind of given that, it's possible that the consumption portion of this ordinance may not be enforceable. This is, of course, pending any potential changes in state law in the short session coming up in February, where this may be a topic. That said, the Josephine County Code has a severance clause that would keep intact the rest of the ordinance and take out what would be deemed to be unlawful. And I believe our municipal code has the same thing. So the practical implications of consent. The ordinance 2023-004 is largely duplicative of some of the nuisance codes that we passed in June, namely 5.57130, 140, and 150, which is public consumption of alcohol, possession and use of marijuana items in public, tobacco products, and possession or manufacture of drug paraphernalia. With or without consent, we're going to be, the provisions that we have kind of accomplished what the county is looking to do. And as I've said before, Measure 110 is going to be the primary vehicle through which drug violations are cited. So the call to action is at your discretion. The date is also at your discretion, although the county is requesting a resolution by the 15th. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you. Rob, then Rick, then DJ.
Actually, I had my first question was for the chief, if that's appropriate now. I can wait.
It's fine.
So I'm assuming that you had a chance to look this over or discuss it with Justice or whoever, and I'm just wondering, how would this legislation change whatever you guys do?
I haven't had a chance to look this over. It wasn't shared with me.
Rick?
Thank you, Augustus. So a restaurant, if they have a parklet and they have a controlled area, can't they allow their customer to drink alcoholic beverages in the public right of way?
I believe there's a specific exemption for alcohol in a sidewalk cafe in the municipal code. I don't remember it off. I don't remember the code section off the top of my head, but I do believe there's an exemption for that.
So would that wording need to be included in here, or the other would basically just overrule it?
So I don't think so, because you're talking about public consumption of alcohol in a place where it normally wouldn't be permitted. So you're really talking about sidewalks, alleys, streets, parks, places like that. I don't know that a sidewalk cafe as part of a parklet would fall into that category, especially if it's being used as part of the restaurant.
Okay. My last question, if we already have the essential parts already in our ordinances, what advantage is it to the county to have us adopt this?
I think it's more of a political consideration on your part.
Okay, thank you.
DJ, then Joel, then Brian, then Val.
Sure, it might be the same question that Rick just asked, but I'm just going to go ahead and field it. So given that this is duplicative and likely unenforceable, what goal does this achieve?
It's a great question. I think this is something that was missed by not just lawyers here, but lawyers across the state. Given that it's duplicative, I'm not sure, honestly, from a legal perspective, I'm not sure what purpose it would serve. If we're thinking about our codes and what we've just passed, there are provisions for possession, use, and manufacture. So if we're applying the state law to what we have, we're only going to be enforcing on possession and manufacture and not use. So really, it's kind of a wash.
Okay. Second question, are you aware of any official lobbying from the governing bodies of this county to change or repeal 110 of any kind?
Not that I've heard of so far.
Sure, thanks.
Joel?
My questions have been answered. I just have something for discussion.
Okay. Brian?
Same.
Valerie?
Yeah, this is kind of this is unclear to me, and I want clarification. So basically, Measure 110 trumps everything at this point, is what we're saying. Is a state law basically that says that it doesn't deal with consumption, it only, so you can possess it, but this is saying you can't consume it. Am I correct?
So the county ordinance is saying that you can't possess it and you can't consume it. Measure 110 as a state measure doesn't apply to this statute up here. What this statute is saying is that a local government cannot adopt or enforce any local law or regulation that makes public intoxication using or being under the influence of cannabis or controlled substances. A local jurisdiction can't make laws regulating that, making it a crime, making it a violation, or making it applicable to a civil citation, or, civil penalties. But Measure 110 itself, as a state measure, the police are going to be able to continue citing that. This is separate. This statute is separate from Measure 110.
So I guess in a sense it goes back to the chief, what he would do differently if this were to be enacted.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify two things, and yes, I did not review this prior to this meeting, although I do have an understanding of what's going on. From the way we currently do business, if an individual is in possession of an illegal substance, let's say heroin, let's say it's within a needle, and he or she is using it, we will charge them with ballot measure 110, possession of an illegal substance, regardless of whether they use it or not. So technically, the use is legal, but the possession is illegal, and we charge that all the time. So we have a tool to enforce drug possession, although it only is a violation. Fentanyl, more than 1 gram, just changed to a misdemeanor, although less than 1 gram is not, and or 5 units, I think, or 5 pills. So hopefully that answers your question. It's very complicated, I totally get it. And if you're asking an opinion, is it going to help? Could it help if the state law is changed, which would either mean a legislative concept or a repeal? Would it be useful? Of course it would.
And I just wanted to clarify that when we were at the forum, the legislative forum, Lily did say that they had tried to bring up several measures or laws to override Measure 110. So it is on the radar there. It wasn't passed this last session, but it's on the radar. And I do and have read a lot about it in Portland. They're doing a lot to kind of do the same thing. And so that's, I guess my thought is I want anything I can do to make a tool easier to say, no, our parks are not a place to do drugs. Anything I can do, I want to do that. And so if this is something that would help in that way, then I would be in favor of doing that. I just, I don't know if it will do that.
So just to note, the code amendments that you passed in June that are on the screen behind me, those explicitly talk about possession, use, and manufacture of drugs in city parks as being prohibited. Now, what has changed since then is nothing really, because Measure 110 is still the citable offense, because if you're talking about excluding an individual from a park, that one state charge, that one state citation is enough for a 30-day exclusion. But our municipal code makes it perfectly clear that that activity is prohibited in our parks.
Vanessa, then Brian, then Joel.
In my reading of this, Councillor Lovelace, I don't think that this is targeted at the parks. It appears that it's targeted at roadways and thoroughfares. But my question is how this got onto the council's agenda, if there was council interest, or just kind of curious how we got here.
I'll have the city manager answer that because I actually was not part of the discussion.
I can answer it. I'll go ahead and answer it. It had come to us on August 18th. We had got a memo about it. And when we got the memo on August 18th, Dwayne came forth and said he was in favor of it. I asked some questions and said I was in favor of getting my questions answered about it. And Rick had also had a question on it. So we, at the forum on, I guess what day was that? Monday? Tuesday. It was Tuesday. Dwayne brought up the fact that he knew there was a time frame. By September 15th, they wanted to know. And we had not had the last council manager commissioner meeting. And that was when we had kind of originally kind of tried to gauge and kind of get some more information from the commissioners, but it was canceled, so it didn't happen. So because of that, we knew that there were some people that, wanted more, 3 people. We actually called Sarah on her phone. I texted Sarah and asked her to get back to me because we had the time restraint. If it were going to be put on a meeting, it had to be put on this meeting because they needed the information by September 15th, and we will not meet again until after that. So it was a matter of timing. It was a matter of texting Sarah and saying we needed some input, and so I went ahead and said feedback, and I didn't get any. And so the manager and I decided to just put on the meeting so we could have this discussion tonight.
Thank you for that. Just so that I'm clear, 2 counselors were in support of having it on the agenda?
There were 3.
Okay, thank you.
It got added to the agenda just, yesterday. And I'm sorry, but I can't check my council email while I'm at work. It was an email, not a text.
I texted you first, and
I'll show you my phone. I did not get a text from you. I got an email. All right, other questions? Joel?
So if I understood, Augusta, what you said to us, the main difference that I see between our existing regulations and these proposed regulations, one talks about all public land and ours just address parks?
Yes, that would be the biggest distinction.
So like this would cover the downtown sidewalks, for example?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, did you still have a question?
Yeah. So if we sign on to this, is that giving authority to county law enforcement to handle that within the city?
So I don't think so. I think all that consent would do would allow the ordinance to apply within the city limits for the police to enforce. I do not believe that it gives jurisdiction over to the county to handle matters that take place within the city.
And then up there on the screen, it says with or without the county's text amendments, the above provisions accomplish the same goal. So
I think the reason that I said that is because 5.57 deals with city park regulation and public places. I do believe that in these 3 provisions, it cites both city parks and public places.
So if it already cites public places in our ordinance, is that?
Yes, I do believe that's what it says.
Okay, thank you.
Joel?
So I'm a little dense, and I don't hear very well. But I just wanted to clarify one thing. My understanding from my first question was there was a difference between the 2 because one covered all public places such as sidewalks, and our ordinances only covered the parks.
I'm going to double check on that.
Now I heard something that was just 180 degrees opposite.
Yep, you did. That's why I said I'm
Okay,
checking on it.
okay, thank you.
Do you need a few minutes, Augustus?
Nope, I found it.
Okay.
So if we're starting with public consumption of alcohol, unless an alcohol permit is obtained as provided for in GPMC 6.46045, no person shall have in their possession in any city park or on public property an open container of alcoholic beverages, nor shall any person, while in any city park or on public property, consume alcoholic beverages at any time. So that speaks to public property. The next section, it shall be unlawful for any individual to possess, use, or manufacture marijuana items or any other controlled substance by any medium or method in a city park or on public property at any time. Drug paraphernalia. It is unlawful for a person to use or possess with intent to use drug paraphernalia in any city park or on public property. So it applies to city park and public property. My apologies.
Okay, other questions? Brian, then Rick?
Well, just to wrap that up, so is this largely kind of a duplication of what we've already done?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Rick?
Just further confirmation, so public property would include every right-of-way, sidewalk, and so forth?
That was the intent of the nuisance code update.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify, what's the difference between if we participate in this and if the county does it on their own? So they could do an ordinance like this that would affect the areas outside of the city, but they need us to sign on in order to have it work within the city? Is that?
That's, in a nutshell, that's correct. So for this ordinance to apply within the city limits, the county is required to get the consent of the city council.
Okay. And then as far as ORS 403.402 goes, it says that a political subdivision shall not adopt or enforce any local law or regulation that makes this list of things, including public intoxication, drunken disorderly conduct, vagrancy, a violation, or subject to criminal penalties. So it's your understanding that this entire thing may be unenforceable?
Not the entire thing. I think the consumption piece is probably the most open piece because the state statute that I referred to, it almost explicitly says that you can't have a violation or criminal violation for use or being under the influence of a controlled substance or cannabis. However, the county's ordinance also refers to possession of an open container, both in general and in a moving vehicle. I don't think that there's an issue with that.
Right. But if I were to use my mind reading skills, I would think that what they're trying to do here is curb people being publicly intoxicated, either with alcohol or drugs, and find some sort of criminal charge for that.
So the penalty for this is trespass from that public place. It isn't like an underlying fine for that particular violation. The penalty for any of those violations is trespass.
Okay, so if somebody were drunk on a downtown sidewalk, they would be trespassed from the sidewalk, from that location? Or how does that work,
I
Chief?
suppose-
Or maybe like what?
They'd be arrested for trespass in public. That's essentially how that would look. Again, this is a political consideration on the part of council. I have noted both in the memo and in tonight's presentation that I believe some of this work is duplicative. I do believe that council has enacted ordinances in June that address the issues that the county is looking to fix. I have no dog in the fight. I just wanted to make sure that you had the information that you had in order to have a discussion about it.
So our current city ordinances would allow us to address trespassing, especially maybe for disorderly conduct or public intoxication?
So it wouldn't be for drunken disorderly conduct, it'd be just for disorderly conduct. But
okay.
yes, for public intoxication, for public drinking essentially, there's an exemption in that state ordinance that allows for a locality to regulate that behavior if it's in a location where drinking wouldn't normally be permitted.
Okay, and we have an ordinance in place that allows us to deal with?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Joel, it's time to allow public comment unless you have a question. Okay. Public comment on this proposal here. David?
Hi, I'm under the impression that this would allow them to be arrested for trespass, whereas now they're just trespassed. Is that correct? I mean, I'm sorry, but
If you
That
ask,
that was the opinion I got from this, that this would be able to be arrested for trespass.
anybody else want to comment? Please state
wondering about the logistics
state your
of it.
name first and let us know if you live in the city.
Okay. Oliva Herrera, and I live in that part of Grants Pass, 97526. That's not considered part of the city. So I live out by Wildlife Images, so it gets considered a county area, but the federal post office says I live in Grants Pass. I was just wondering about the logistics of this. You know, I look at it like the police, how they would even be able to enforce it. Now, I have seen in like Western Australia how they handle things like this public intoxication, which probably would be a good idea about raising that extra money you guys are talking about. They would, all the exits or entrances into the city off the freeways and into the town, they would randomly do kind of like a DUI stop, but where every single vehicle went in there and everybody was instantly tested for all these things. I have never even heard of locally, I don't know if they have it or not, you know, where they can actually test for methamphetamines and cocaine and heroin if someone was on it to even charge him with it. So I'm just interested if we even have the logistical capabilities to enforce that.
Anybody else? All right, we'll close public comment, and I believe Joel is first for discussion.
Well, I'd ask those two same questions if the chief could answer that. And then I had some discussion.
One was what happens for trespass?
Thank you for the reminder. You caught me doing multiple, I was multitasking.
Way to go.
First question was trespassing. And I think I heard, do we have the manpower to even do this? The trespassing piece is complicated. Trespassing from the parks, if you commit 2 municipal code violations and or 1 state charge, you will be trespassed for 30 days, period. That happens all the time. Public intoxication is not a crime, but when we come across people that are so intoxicated where they're unable to care for themselves, we utilize the sobering center. We utilize the sobering center all the time. We utilize ballot measure 110, possession of narcotics, all the time. We have the most citations in the state of Oregon. I'm hopeful that other municipalities, cities, and counties will maybe take our lead because I think it's important. We do our best to enforce everything we possibly can when our residents, when the people call upon us, but we cannot be everywhere. It's absolutely impossible everywhere, so we just cannot do it all, but we will give it our all. And I think that as I monitor what's going on in our community, I know the workload and the amount of the work we produce. We arrest, and I said this a few times, we arrest a lot of people, we issue a lot of citations, we hold a lot of people accountable, and we also try to encourage treatment at the same time. So hopefully that answered the question.
I'm not sure I cued you enough. Is there an arrest for trespass?
What charge are you talking about?
What happens with a trespass? I guess there was a question about whether somebody's just told not to come back or whether they're actually arrested or receive a fine. Like what happens when somebody is trespassed?
Sure. The way it works now, if somebody's trespassed from a city park and they reappear when they were told to leave, they will go to jail. They will be arrested.
Thank you. Joel?
So then can I go on to my comment?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had All Care representative came before us and reiterated a policy of dealing with homelessness, and that included 4 things. Those 4 things were increased services for mental illness, increased services for substance abuse and addiction, 3, increase in affordability for low-income people, and the 4th one was increased accountability so people don't hurt each other. This is obviously in that 4th case. The way I understand it, though it would not increase the accountability, it would just duplicate what we already have. So kudos, I would guess, at this point in time, unless I misunderstand what was said, to the county commissioners for doing it outside the county, but I think we got it covered inside. And we need to do more with accountability, and that, especially at the state level. Otherwise, we're not going to deal with this in an appropriate manner.
DJ, then Valerie, then Brian, then Rick.
Sure. I find this not only duplicative, but superfluous, and arguably unenforceable. And I'm just, almost as a matter of practice, can't align myself with such an ordinance. Given that there hasn't been any official lobbying attempt from any governing bodies, including us or the county commissioners, to repeal or amend 110, I could get behind that kind of effort at this time. Thanks.
Valerie?
I'm just going to speak up in defense of putting it on the meeting tonight, because I feel that having a public discussion and getting the clarification was important. I think oftentimes the animosity that comes between the county commissioners and the city council can be avoided if we can have discussions transparently out in public. So I think it was good tonight to get that clarification on the duplicity of ours that are there and understanding a little bit more about it. So I do appreciate it being forth and brought forth. I know Dwayne did indeed want it to go forward, but I personally, after knowing and understanding the duplicity of it and knowing that it is already being taken care of, and not wanting to make it more difficult for our police to try to figure out a new rule, I will probably be voting, not bring it forth.
Brian, then Rick.
I think we've spent enough time talking about this. It's a waste of all of our time. The county should have just signed on to what we already did instead of redrafting and bringing it to us. So I don't really understand what this entire thing is. So I'm going to go ahead and move to deny the resolution granting consent to Josephine County, to apply a resolution granting consent to Josephine County, to apply ordinance 2023-004 within the Grants Pass city limits.
Is there a second? Vanessa? Discussion on the motion. Next up is Rick, then Rob.
I just want to say I'll be voting no because I feel it is a duplicate, although I was one of the counselors that requested this come before the council just so we would be properly informed. And second comment, Dwayne Junker texted he would be voting yes on the ordinance. Thank you.
He doesn't get to vote if he's not here, but I guess he can provide that input. Rob.
I can't find fault with three counselors putting this on the agenda for tonight. I can't find fault with Augustus doing his best to explain it. With that said, I feel that we completely wasted the last half hour. This is just absurd. I'll be voting no.
Joel.
So I'm going to be voting no also, and I don't want in any way to diminish that fourth item, which several people would call it the first item, and that is we need to increase accountability in our community.
Brian.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, I forget which document it is, but it's either the city charter or the council handbook that says that the mayor sets the agenda. So we need to be very careful about three councilors just popping something on our business meetings like that. And I'll be voting to deny.
Before I take the vote here, I think you guys have all spoken. I just want to say that we do have a standing date for a meeting with the commissioners, which they did not have last week. And so we didn't meet with them. They could have put this on the agenda. I believe this is actually a pattern. I think I can come up with 3 examples, if I have to think about it, of times that they have crammed something onto our agenda at the last minute in a panic. And we do have an agenda setting process. I don't know what happened yesterday. If I missed a call, I saw after I was told that this would be put on the agenda. I found Valerie's email last night. Anyway, not the end of the world here, but we just want to be cautious of them abusing our agenda process. I keep my phone with me. I usually do have the ringer off, but I check my texts more than I check my emails. I think you all know that. I'm not that hard to get a hold of, and I didn't know this was coming yesterday until I got told. So with that, I think we have a motion to deny the request. So as DJ put it here, yes means no. Overheard him say that a minute ago. So if you are wanting to deny the request, say yes. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
All right, 7-0, and we're done with that topic. Appointments are up next, and we have a motion to appoint 4 members to the Parks Advisory Committee. You should all have a bright orange sheet here. We have 4 openings on the Parks Advisory Committee, and 4 candidates have applied in alphabetical order. They are Catherine Bostwick, Emily Gogol, Shane Hickman, and Chad Thorson. The committee recommended appointing all 4 of them. They felt that all 4 applicants showed strong backgrounds in park and community involvement in their applications, and all 4 would be of value to the city. So with that said, I think we can just entertain a motion. Valerie?
I make a motion to accept Catherine Bostwick, Emily Gogol, Shane Hickman, Chad Thorson to the Parks Advisory Committee.
Seconded by Rick. Any discussion? All right, Valerie, you made the motion to appoint all 4. How do you vote?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have a situation on the Historical Building and Sites Commission. On page, turning to 57 of my packet here. We have a committee member who has had at least 3 consecutive unexcused absences. It's Cynthia Sherratt. Her term is set to expire in May of 2027. So the Historical Building and Sites Commission has requested to remove her and have the opportunity to appoint somebody else in order to ensure quorums in the future. Discussion? Valerie?
Yeah, I would just like to make a motion to remove Cynthia Sherratt from the Historical Buildings and Sites Commission. This is not the first committee that she has had difficulty being there, I think for health reasons or whatever. And I think at the time she was assigned, it was a discussion that we had. So I go ahead and make the motion to remove her.
Seconded by Joel. Any discussion? Joel?
So I think she has some conflicts. We've tried to contact her. I've been a liaison to the committee. It happened her last appointment as well, and she hasn't responded. She just doesn't come. So I guess I feel like I have no choice, that she's already made that choice for us. And hopefully with good reason, because she needs to take care of some higher priorities.
All right, Valerie, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item tonight. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not to individuals. At the conclusion of public comment, council will have an opportunity to respond. This meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, and other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. If you have a question regarding any government-provided service or a current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve the matter. And I have a couple of cards to get us started. Brian Weldon and then David Dapper. Please state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
My name is Brian Weldon. I live in the county. Mayor Bristol and council members, It's obvious to me that after talking to hundreds and hundreds of homeowners around the city, the number one concern that is a huge rise in the amount of crime late at night in these communities. They all want this stopped. Last June, the council decided to impose new rules in all the parks. We all thought that was a good idea. Unfortunately, since then, there's been very little law enforcement on those rules. Now we've decided to put together a team of citizens, recommended by you all, to take care of this problem. And I will thank the chief that every time I call the police, when I see the violations of the new rules in June and many other very, very terrible violations, the chief and his people respond immediately. Obviously, we don't have enough law enforcement actually attending these parks to be sure these laws are enforced. So we as civilians, as citizens, will take care of that and call the police when we see problems. Instead of spending millions of dollars on low-barrier shelters, why don't we make the highest priority law enforcement? And we've all talked about all these taxes and how we can raise more money. I understand the city is in financial decline. I have no problem with taxing people to come here to tour for tourism. Hellgate boats, hotels, restaurants. I don't think those people would mind paying a little more money, for we would have more law enforcement protecting our parks and our cities. Stop the enabling. We are increasing the homeless in our parks, in our alleyways, in all our city areas, down the river where I live, because people know that they can come to Grants Pass and everything I need will be free. That's not the way to deal with this problem. In fact, that makes this problem much, much worse. If you have any solutions on this serious problems, with no desire to listen to the citizens in this town, while you're spending thousands of dollars trying to stop and recall, when this could be just one step we need new leadership in this town. It's obvious the lack of leadership is the number one problem with the crime going straight up like a rocket. Thank you.
David?
Hi, David Dapper, city resident. I'm here, I understand in a week or so there's going to be a workshop on the nonprofits. And I pray you'll all consider limiting them to one area, because what happens there's a small neighborhood, it closes it around it, like at Baker Park and at Tussing Park, that just aren't equipped to handle the droves that come down for these free services. And it's not good for these people to be searching all over town for where they can get their free stuff either. That creates another problem. If you want to help these people have access to these services, you need to pick one place consistently where they can show up. And if that's what you want to do, that's the best way for both sides, because the neighborhoods around Baker Park and Tussing Park just are not equipped to handle this influx of junkies that come waddling down our street looking for stuff to steal, and then they stay in the parks enjoying their free stuff. And hell, we had one guy offered a new tent for a couple beers. This just creates this problem in these neighborhoods that they're just not equipped to handle. And I pray, if you want to help these people and you think this will help them, pick a place other than the city parks in these small neighborhoods where they can get these services, and these neighborhoods will be safe from some of this crime. That'll bring a lot of problems out of our neighborhoods. Anyway, I just pray you'll consider that. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wanted to speak during public comment?
Yeah, my name is Mike Slotemaker, resident of Grants Pass. When things are going well, usually those folks stay at home. We enjoy some shows in the evening and relax. But I wanted to make a point of coming here tonight because I believe in praise in public and criticize in private. And so I know I can't call people out because that's the way the rules are, but I want to say the leadership of this city, the elected officials, the staff, thank you. And you're all familiar with, we're right upstream from Baker Park and the challenges we've had. When I came out about a month ago, I was mentioning the fires and what a challenge that was. And I need everybody here to listen for just a moment. We had a fire come less than 100 feet from our house. And there's a member of this leadership team that called me a day later and said, Mike, I just need to hear your voice and know you're okay. And when I came here a month ago, within 24 hours, there's a member of this leadership team that sent me an email, went and found my email address and said, Mike, I heard you, I understand, and let's get you plugged into the fire department. Within 48 hours, I was sitting in a meeting with the chief, the deputy fire, or with the fire marshal and one of the deputy chiefs, and we had a plan that we started to put together. Obviously, in light of an extreme fire season or fire danger, we had to make sure that we're following rules. And I've now been passed over with the city's approval to ODFW to follow their regulations for what we're doing. We're getting a plan together. So in public, I want to praise the staff, I want to praise the elected officials and say thank you for listening. Thank you for the empathy, not the sympathy. You understood, you listened. And I'm trying to take that same exercise and I want to listen. I'm a new resident to Grants Pass. I need to find out how Grants Pass does things. And I'm just tickled pink that I was selected to attend the Citizens Police Academy. And I'm just soaking it up like a sponge. And we had the DA and the district attorney last night, and I just learned so much about what's going on here. And it is unfair for me to sit here and point at city council and say, what are you doing about the parks? Folks, it's a bigger problem than what we've got here. We have an I-5 problem. And I appreciate the 30 minutes that could be considered wasted, because we have leadership that's looking outside the box to say, let's spend some time, maybe there's something in here we can find. And you didn't, but you tried. So when people sit there and say city council's not doing anything, you just spent 30 minutes looking for what can we do better, there's nothing there. Sorry, Augustus, your time was not wasted. It was vetted and determined it wasn't practical to go. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of you, the elected officials, the staff. It's a privilege to live in this town.
Anybody else?
Thank you, guys. It's the first time I've been here, guys, so I'm a little bit nervous. If you could...
what was your name again?
Oh, Oliver Herrera County. If we could get a status of the water treatment plant was the question. What the actual cost of the property has been and when the project is expected to break ground. Is there a place where a citizen could review the balance sheet for the county? We need to understand how much tax revenue will need to be generated to cover the cost so that the big picture could be illustrated. Do you have a feeling, I'm jumping on a couple topics here, sorry. Do you have a feeling for how much it costs for 911 calls for those who OD without insurance? From the person who receives the call to the personnel who go to the scene, the cost of the vehicles, the drugs involved, the emergency room, and maybe hospital stay. How much does this cost the taxpayers of Grants Pass for these services? What do porta potties in the park cost? And what other expenses are there for maintaining the park as an encampment? Also, concerned about the political cost of a low barrier shelter. Not only have other cities proven that they don't work, they start with a grant, which is actually taxpayer money, doled back as some sort of gift. Then when the grant runs out, who will pay the many costs? What will the insurance cost be for such a dangerous place, if any insurance company will actually write a policy? And who picks up the tab if the city gets sued for a crime within the facility? Wouldn't it be smarter to have a tent city away from town for those who aren't clean and sober, away from poor mothers with kids and seniors? mixing those groups seems dangerous. There's no upside to it. Maybe Grants Pass could write a resolution about repealing 110. And if you haven't seen Baker Park lately, I invite you to visit it very soon. Thank you.
Anybody else tonight?
I just wanted to, sorry. Kevin Gambucci, City. I just wanted to expand on what Councilor Delarrange had said about the taxes. I think that's a great avenue for looking into. I don't think it should be for just restaurants and for the food and drink. I think it should be looked at as, it's a tax for all things that you normally get taxed on. You go anywhere. My business takes me all over the place, and everywhere that they charge tax, nobody has an issue with it. It's normal. I know Oregon's always prided themselves on not having a state tax, but I think it's something they should look into. The tourist trade, which we pride ourselves supposedly is bringing tourists here, let them pay for this. Let them do. When I go anywhere else, I'm paying for hotel taxes that go to the city and paying for all these infrastructure taxes by just showing up there and purchasing whatever they have. Same thing here. We should have everybody shoulder that cost instead of just having people that own houses that are paying for the water bills take care of it and being forced down our throat. The city tax or the state tax is not going to be here, but if we have a city tax just for this town, take care of ourselves. I think it's something like, like you're saying, we can vote with our wallet. If we want to pay it for buy something, it goes to it. If we don't, we vote with our wallet and we don't have to buy it. So it's not being forced down everybody's throat. It's something that it's going to apply to everybody, rich or poor. No matter how much you spend, that's how much you're going to pay. Everybody know in advance, so I'm going to buy this, it's going to cost me this much. I can budget for it. If it's something big or I can't afford for it, I'm going to save up for it and pay, and it'll still go to take care of the police and the fire. And on the other thing with the, like this gentleman was saying about having all the, I agree that it should be in one place and not everywhere. But I think we should, like I mentioned earlier, we need to limit all of the coddling. If we need to look into more of a mental health help and not just handing out drugs. It's like, that's why there's no cures for a lot of things. There's no money in a cure. And that's the same thing with all these nonprofits. If these nonprofits weren't collecting grants to give out the money, they'd be out of business. All those CEOs and all those people that work there that are collecting big paychecks for coddling these people, they'd be out of a job. And that's why they're pushing so hard to push this stuff in our community. It's the only people that are benefiting from that is those people that work for those companies. That's especially the CEOs of these companies. If we got rid of that and just focused on mental health, they want to come in and provide mental health, I'm all for that. But to be providing money just for drugs, drug paraphernalia, and just absolute nonsense for them to keep passing out tents and clothes that they're going to throw away, and then 2 days later they can get another one with no consequences. What happened to your last one? Threw it away. Well, here's a new one. That's ridiculous. Let's provide mental health for these people and find a different avenue. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close public comment. Oh, we have one more? One more.
Two more.
All right, y'all can stand up in a line. We don't just move this process along a little bit.
Rika Brown, Grants Pass, ditto to what that gentleman said. Sales tax is the most powerful tax you can get. And thing is, there's this whole idea of, food and beverage tax, let's hit it, just the restaurants and the people who eat in, bigger restaurants and such like that. The fewer people you tax, the more you have to tax them. We should have a straight up sales tax all year round, 3 cents on the dollar. That would provide you a whole lot of money for public safety. And speaking of public safety, one of the biggest problems we have in this town with safety is our fire danger. Because we're not watering. The people of Grants Pass built the original water plant I think mainly so they wouldn't have their city burning down around their ears. And from then on, they started watering, and they started watering more and more. And in the 60s, we actually had to have ordinances about weeds, about, controlling your weeds so people can garden without a whole lot of weeds getting in the way. But now the weeds are just being allowed to grow in many places. And it's all because we are enforcing our code by complaint. Very few people want to complain about their neighbors. It's dangerous. And at least they think it's dangerous, and the perception is as good as the fact. So just open up your community service officers and police to enforcing our landscaping codes, our maintenance codes of property. And that will make this town a lot safer. But also, you're going to have to reform the water rates, and we're working on that. Thank you.
Mike Pelfrey, city resident. So I'm not going to take up the whole 3 minutes because I'm tired, and this was really a really long meeting. I appreciate all that you do. I know that I would not want to switch places with you because after witnessing what I witnessed tonight, it seems like you guys don't get along too well. And so I think that perhaps maybe you guys need to maybe sit down at the drawing board and figure out how to be a team and work out some of these issues that you have voiced to the public tonight. And it seems that a lot of you aren't on the same page, and which is pretty typical. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to be able to solve a lot more issues in our town, especially little old Grants Pass, by actually trying to be on the same team because, there's 9 of you. I do include the mayor because, as you saw tonight, she does have some power. So with that said, if you were a baseball team, you would suck. And I mean that because you're not playing on the same, you're not gelling. You guys need to gel. Not just you, but you guys too. So I wanted to share that with you because that was my observation for tonight. I really wasn't going to do public comment, but the other thing I want to leave you with is this. In June, the mayor, maybe the city council, but I know the mayor decided to proclaim June as Pride Month. And then on August 31st, we just had a national awareness of opioid epidemic, people dying from overdose. There was a display out in front of our county building where I think my wife just reminded me that the first year they did that, there was only about 7 chairs. There's over 50-something chairs there. And I don't know what the number is so far for this year, but I'm pretty sure that the last I checked, it was 11 or 12 that we've had overdose deaths within the city of Grants Pass. So to me, I think that it would send, I shouldn't be the one coming up here reminding our town and our city that this is something that's affecting us from every point and direction in our community. And yet our city didn't have the balls to stand up and actually proclaim Overdose Awareness Day with the rest of our country. So you should be ashamed of yourselves for that. Thank you.
All right, we're going to close public comment. Quickly address what's on my mind here. The proclamations are done by request. There's a process for that. I didn't get a request having to do with overdose awareness, but we did do a fentanyl awareness earlier this year at some point. I remember a woman with her talking about her grandson. Chief, did you want to touch at all on this idea that there's very little law enforcement regarding our new rules in the parks?
Sure, absolutely. We are very busy enforcing a lot in our parks, in our city. We're super busy. We're enforcing everything. So hopefully that answers it. We're busy. We're enforcing a lot.
Thank you. I think we have a very responsive police department. Council, did anybody want to follow up after public comment? Valerie?
I just wanted one clarification. We do currently have a tourism tax, a lodging tax on hotels. It is 12%, which I think is the highest in the state. A certain percentage of it has to be used for promotion, and that's why we have a destination marketing organization. But a certain percentage of that does go to public safety. So that is another tax that is used completely, I mean, not completely, but as much as we can, we've gotten as much as we can that does go towards public safety. So there is a tourism tax currently for our hotels and for our Airbnbs and vacation homes. So I just wanted to clarify that. I did have a question. This is a question, I think, for staff, because at one point in time, we had a problem in downtown with people coming into the kitchen, and it was a problem for the neighborhoods because you had all these people coming into St. Paul, was it not St. Paul's, the St. Vincent de Paul station. And so what we did do is we now have a mobile kitchen that I'm assuming still operates, correct? And it goes out, is it 4 days a week or 5 days a week that it goes? Can I just get clarification on how that works? Because I know that they purposely made a point of having that go outside to different locations so that it was being taken away from a downtown neighborhood.
You're correct. That was one of the solutions to help alleviate some of that centralized location of distribution of food and care for certain individuals. As far as we know, and we are not associated directly with them, so I don't know what their service level is at this time, but you did adequately describe the way it has been operating in the past and may still be operating now, which was to provide different rotated areas throughout the community. And when they did implement that, it was discovered that they were able to serve a wider variety of people, more people, and it was actually a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I think it was done in some parking lots around some of the churches and things that actually have it. And I think it actually has gotten financial support through CDBG funds. So
Right.
That's how we're involved, is that we give them some funding to run that. So that was just something that came to my mind when we were talking about how when things happen in small neighborhoods that can totally overrun the neighborhood, that might be something to take a look at.
Brian, then Joel?
Thank you. I just wanted to touch on what Mr. Dapper said about limiting the nonprofits to one location. And I know we're going to have a workshop on that here very soon. So I guess just to prep, the question I'm going to ask staff about that is around the legality of that and how that would pertain to, I guess, the injunction and the lawsuit and things like that, the prospect of limiting, essentially kind of saying this is the location where you can provide services. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know in advance.
Joel?
So the other thing I heard was accountability, and I think we need in the future to provide some feedback as a group, as a team, on Measure 110. And I'm not sure repeal of it is the biggest issue, but we need to have increased accountability for people that are dying and the people that are being adversely affected by their presence. So stay tuned.
Brian, did you already go? Yes. Okay. I just wanted to follow up and say the idea of the low barrier shelter, I do keep talking about this. I get accused of harping on it. The reason why I keep bringing it up is because it's very clear in the lawsuit that the city lost 3 years ago that the reason why we lost this lawsuit is that we don't have a low barrier shelter. That is federally defined. It's not something I made up or have a preference for. If we had a low barrier shelter in this town, it would provide our police a tool to be able to enforce no camping in the parks. And it's very specific to a low barrier shelter. At one point, we were talking about an urban campground, but I've talked to Augustus about this, and he thinks that we need to have something with 4 walls, whether that's pallet shelters or an indoor shelter, in order to satisfy the lawsuit. And so this isn't about really what kind of shelter works best or how to solve homelessness or anything like that. It's about providing a tool so that we can go to people in the parks and say, you can't camp here, you can go to the shelter. And so there was a complaint earlier tonight about, increased crime at night. If people were in the shelter, they wouldn't be roaming the streets at night. And I know personally, I spent 6 or 7 nights in the warming shelter last winter, helping to keep it open, and we had about 45 people a night there. And the reason why I was doing that is because that's 45 people a night who aren't roaming around the streets. They had access to a restroom, so they weren't making use of our sidewalks and parking lots, and they weren't causing anybody problems. They were in the shelter, and no business owners got to work at 8 o'clock the next morning to find, people camped in their door stoops. So that's the point of having a shelter, is not about giving people things and enabling them. It's giving our police a tool to be able to say no more camping in our parks. And that's something that's really important to me, is being able to clean up our parks. And, we talked about the urban campground. I still think, that is another tool, even if it doesn't work for the lawsuit. We may need a campground as well as an indoor shelter. But I think that people in this town do want that. I know that there's a loud group of people who don't want the shelter, but we have to have it. Otherwise, what we have is an urban campground in all of our city parks, and it's unsupervised. There aren't rules. There's no staff there. It's a nightmare. So I don't know how people can keep talking about wanting to solve that problem without actually providing a solution. And that's what the low barrier shelter does. Our city doesn't have money to keep it running. It would need to be funded through state or federal grants. We've always talked about that. We've never talked about using city funds to pay for it. 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we were begging for community groups to be a part of this solution. We were saying, it's not the job of city government to take care of homeless people, so to speak, and that we should have the faith community, community volunteers, nonprofits. We have that now. We have nonprofits that have come forward. We have community groups that have formed to help provide the services that people need in order to get well. And so there has been movement, and we need to take the next step, and that is to establish the low barrier shelter and give police that tool. We want to get to a point where we don't have people camping in our parks anymore. And if this is my last meeting, that's what I have to say. Staff. Emails.
So there was one suggesting using a large empty commercial building for a homeless shelter, one opposed to a water bill increase, one regarding enforcement in the parks, one arguing against low barrier shelters, and one limiting nonprofits to areas other than city parks.
Alrighty, on our consent agenda, we're going to remove item A because that's a moot point for tonight since we didn't pass the other portion earlier in the evening. So, Council President, would you please read the consent calendar starting with item B?
Yes, this is the consent calendar for September 6, 2023. Item B, motion acknowledging the receipt of the monthly financial report for May 2023. C, motion acknowledging the receipt of the monthly investment report for July 2023. D, motion approving the minutes of the City Council meeting of August 16, 2023. The rest of them are motions. There is one correction, minor correction on F. I'm going to go down. There was motion acknowledging the minutes of the Park Advisory Committee meeting. I'm going to make a small amendment. The reference to the proposed funding for the swim pool said it was coming from Arbor funding. It meant to say ARPA funding, ARPA, so I'd like to make that clear. But E is the Historical Buildings and Site Commission meeting, July 13th. F, Parks Advisory Committee, so amended, May 11th, 2023. Urban Area Planning Commission, July 12th. Urban Area Planning Commission, August 9th. Housing Advisory Committee meeting, July 21st, and the Collaborative Economic Development Committee meeting of July 27th. With that, I'd like to make a motion to pass the consent agenda.
Seconded by Vanessa. All right, so we had a small, we removed item A and we had a small amendment in item F. Valerie, how do you vote on the consent agenda?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Mayor and council comments. Does anybody have something? DJ?
Yeah, Council Memo 51 regarding the IGA for the UAPC membership. Next step would be to file a development code text amendment. It amends Article 7 to include only city residents on the UAPC. I'd like to move forward with that.
Yeah, we're finally making some progress there. Anybody else? All right, staff?
Thank you. I'd just like to say, although we didn't pass the public safety fee tonight, I don't see that as a step backwards. I see that as a step forwards. And I just wanted to point that out to everyone who may be listening and stuff. It's just another step in council and staff and community identifying solutions to this difficult challenge that we've been working on for multiple years and over a decade. And want to also thank council for your resolve in addressing the public safety challenges that have been facing you, that you've come to have to address, not of your own doing. This has been going on for multiple years, and I appreciate that resolve. And I also want to just provide a special thank you to the X team and to my colleagues out there for their professionalism, their passion for public service, and I look forward to working together as a team with council, the community, and my colleagues in providing quality community services. Thank you.
Any other announcements tonight? Jason?
I have one brief announcement for you. We were notified late last week by the State Oregon Emergency Management Board that our BRIC application was selected out of 803 other applicants. It is not a guaranteed award, but we are moving to the next phase, which will start in the next month, which definitely is a very, very positive sign. As you recall, last year at this time, we were telling you we were not accepted. We still believe our application is very strong. We are now amongst 124 communities in the nation who are competing for $3 billion. So we will get some funding. It's a matter of whether we get the full 50 million. So I will keep you posted as we move forward. It was very, very exciting news. So
Awesome. We'll cross our fingers for a big number. What's the, big money, or whatever, right on that? All right, anybody else? That brings us to Brian.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Vanessa. All in favor of adjourning tonight? Say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? All right, see you at the workshop on the 18th.